Class swimmer spends a certain amount of time every day working on his or her stroke. For the fitness athlete, a certain level of technique is required just to train effectively. Ernie McGlisco, head coach at Cal State Bakersfield and the author of Swimming Faster, explains.
There are some master swimmers, and particularly triathletes, who have such poor kicks that they really can't swim very far without exhausting themselves because they're just working so hard to keep their bodies afloat. They need to get efficient enough to be able to enjoy what they're doing and feel that it's not a struggle.
In our first tape, Basic Technique from the Fast Lane, the specific mechanics of each of the 4 strokes were discussed. This third tape is a continuation of techniques common to the realm of competitive swimming.
It's the total difference between the butterflyer that gets 1st through 3rd and the butterflyer who gets, 6th through 8th, is their willingness and their ability to concentrate on the little things.
You can take information and points that people have used and things to help you become a better swimmer, but you have to put your own stamp on it and work with it in a way that you're comfortable with or that works for you.
There's so many complexities that I really think that you just have to start swimming, look at a tape, ask someone to comment on your stroke, pick 1 or 2 things to work at a time and work at those, and then maybe the next day pick something else. But you have to really practice and practice and practice until it becomes automatic.
In every stroke cycle, there are going to be periods where you have peak velocities, and then there are valleys, and it's particularly in breaststroke. There's this huge valley when you recover your legs. The great swimmers really seem to minimize the valleys more than they maximize the peaks. That's probably the number 1 thing. And then the number 2 thing is that most world-class swimmers I've seen are able to generate a significant peak of propulsion in at least 2 phases of their stroke. Most swimmers, only 1.
Whether it's pure talent, insane competitiveness, internal drive, or just plain old hard work, it is difficult to pinpoint exactly what makes someone a great athlete.
They've never been able to identify feel for the water, but it must exist because these people have it.
The world-class swimmers and experts featured in the Fast Lane video series utilize the exact same stroke mechanics that a fitness swimmer should strive for. The techniques taught in these tapes can be applied universally to any athlete of any ability.
Originally, we just simply pushed backward. Take the hand and use it like a paddle to push the water backward without any sculling motions. We assumed then that your limbs had to push back like a paddle. But really, a propeller, as it sculls across the water in this way, moves the water back. Say the water passes underneath the propeller blade, and if the blade is pitched properly, as the water meets the front edge and travels toward the rear edge, it gets a backward force imparted to it. And that moves the swimmer forward. It's a much more efficient way to swim.
The more time your hand is actually pressing against water or grabbing the water, and you're moving your hand to manipulate that, the more forward momentum you're gonna actually achieve.
What you want to try to feel like in working with the water is feel like you're swimming downstream or going over a waterfall. Not a big waterfall, you don't want to crash and burn, but just kind of going downstream. You don't want to feel like you're working against the water.
You take a look at these fabulous swimmers and you want to try to emulate them, but you don't want to copy them. Because everybody has his or her own stroke. The best thing about this is you can get ideas, and you really get general ideas and even specific ideas on how the stroke should be done. But hey, especially in freestyle, you need to do your own stroke.
Swimming is very complicated. There are lots of little nuances and subtleties and different pitches and rotations and this and that can be very confusing if you try to dissect it all and think about it all at once. So what I recommend to swimmers that I work with and what I think about myself when I swim is just starting somewhere, starting to swim the stroke, and then making 1 change at a time, 2 changes at a time.
You definitely want to think about what's happening in terms of technique. But again, you don't want to be so rigid as to overthink every aspect of the stroke, and that will only come with practice.
In the average workout, a swimmer will do 1,000 or more strokes. This repetition provides a perfect opportunity to work on various aspects of the stroke over and over, as long as you are constantly aware of how you are moving through the water.
If you want to get better at swimming and you're going to experiment with different types of stroke technique, you really need to keep a record of what you're doing. And, that means writing down, you don't necessarily have to write down the whole workout every day, but just write down a few times, keep a logbook, and keep track of where you are.
Well, I think anytime you change the technique in your stroke, you have to do it gradually. And you need to work on it doing specific stroke drills.
An ideal way to work on your technique is to implement stroke drills into your workouts. Stroke drills provide a platform to improve technique by emphasizing certain aspects of the stroke.
I think stroke drills are very, very important. We probably worked on some sort of stroke drill every single day in practice, whether we're swimming 10,000 yards in a practice or we're swimming 1,500 in a taper. We always worked on drills.
I did a lot more stroke technique type drills as I got older to really help me, really make me aware of the different aspects of the strokes and how it needed to all fall together. And I think that helped me probably more than anything.
I think they're very valuable for young swimmers. And I believe by doing the stroke drill, the young swimmer learns to swim better.
Drills are critical. I think drills are great. They allow you to do little things, correct little things that you do wrong. But they allow you to focus on those little things so you can forget about everything else and just focus on that one thing.
We talked about stretching, we talked about different ways to specialize or to isolate muscle groups in terms of focusing on their development and their coordination. Stroke drills, I think, are key to that.
Stroke drills are used so that you can isolate a part of the stroke and then apply it to the whole stroke. The other thing with stroke drills is they're a time when you can just work on your stroke.
Each stroke has its own set of stroke drills. Pick out your favorites, paying special attention to how they might either improve your stroke or keep it in line.
Catch-up is just really to stretch your stroke out.
You have to use your legs a lot when you do the catch-up, so it automatically gives more strength and stamina to your legs.
You take that stroke, and at the split second this hand enters the water, you take the stroke with your other hand.
But it also keeps you long and relaxed, and it allows you to roll your shoulders, to reach out in front of you.
So the catch-up really is just to stretch your stroke out and get your shoulders involved with it. First of all, you have the one-arm stroke drill where you have one arm out front, and you're taking a stroke with your opposite arm.
What that allows you to do is actually feel your hand pull pattern through the water, making sure that you're getting or keeping the pressure against the palm of your hand and getting the most out of every pull that you can.
The variation on that, and it relates to that stroke drill, is taking your left arm, putting it down by your side, and taking the stroke with your right arm, but breathing to the opposite side that you're swimming with. What the stroke drill does when you breathe to the opposite side is it forces you to reach out. You can't cut it short, and it forces you to finish, and it forces you to kick.
Growing up, I had a coach who had me swim in the end lane against the wall, and that would automatically make me keep my elbows up. Well, that's a little brutal at times if you forget. Again, it's an instant reminder that, oh, your hand's not where it's supposed to be, because if you're swimming next to the wall and your elbow's not up, your hand's going to hit the wall.
What the fingertip drill does is it forces you to immediately, when you come out of the water, to start kicking your elbow up and bring your fingertips directly across the water. It's a great drill for those elbows. Probably the best drill as far as keeping your elbows nice and high through your stroke. The fist drill is more of a mental drill than a physical drill, because everybody thinks that swimming with their hands is the most important part of their stroke as far as taking that stroke, but they forget about from their wrist to their elbows. So when I take that away and have my swimmers, especially my master swimmers, swim with their fist only, they realize how important it is in your pull from wrist to elbow. And that's what we're working on, is wrist to elbow.
I would do 2 pulls to 1 kick, and then 1 pull to 2 kicks. And what those drills do is they give you a moment to you isolate the pull or the kick, and then you apply it to the whole stroke. For example, I would take one pull and make it really strong and powerful and really think about how it, just think about just the pull, and then I would apply it to the whole stroke. And the same thing with the kick. I would make a real strong, powerful kick, and then I would, right on top of that, I would do a full stroke and apply the kick to the stroke.
I do something where you go underwater and do, say, 3 full strokes, just like not underwater pullouts, but just the normal stroke, except you're just kind of flat in the water. 3 strokes, and then come up and take 3 strokes. And I think that helps me work on my timing because I don't have the breathing in between each one.
Another stroke drill there I do is I kick with my hands or with my arms by my side, and I would dangle my fingers behind along my side so that what I would when I would bring up my legs, my fingertips would touch the back of my calves. And what that would do is it would remind me to bring my legs up to their maximum. And then also it would remind me when I felt my fingertips touch the calves, I would think about really twisting my toes out so that they're pointed outward to grab as much water as possible.
I do a lot of kicking on my back. I think a lot of people, try and bring their knees up underneath their chest, and if you kick on your back, you can't bring your knees up. I try and keep my knees so they're underwater, and you just drop your feet down. I think that works on that part of your kick so it doesn't come up underneath you.
It's sort of a judgment call whether this is even a stroke drill, but I use it as a stroke drill, is to do ultra long glide breaststroke. Where it might be in 25 yards, I might take 3 or 4 strokes. In working on your stroke, it's always good to really slow it down and really just feel the whole thing and still get power even though your limbs are moving slower through the water.
There's a couple of real obvious favorites. The one-arm stroke, where you have one arm at your side and you swim the stroke with the other, all the while maintaining your kick and your body roll and your body position. And so I do one lap right arm, the other lap left arm.
I think a one-arm drill is a great drill that I've used all along that allows you to focus on one arm at a time, and it allows you to coordinate it with your kick. Another drill that was really good was what I call a delayed drill, where you lay out in the water, where I've got my one arm stretched out above my head and the other one down at my side like I'm finishing. And I kick 6 beats in that motion. And then I take one pull, so my other arm now is above my head, and the other arm is down by my side, and I take another 6 kicks.
We used to do, for coordination, we would do a drill where we'd swim one arm, and then you do one arm stroke, and then you kick a few beats, and you do 2 arm strokes, and then you kick a few beats, and you do 3, and then you start over. So it was kind of a cycle for just coordinating and being able to think about the different cycles of your stroke.
Another drill that is also good for backstrokers is a drill where you learn how to turn over a little faster, and it gives you a little more power in your stroke, and that's called the spin drill. The spin drill is really something you can only do for a length or 2 lengths at a time and then take a lot of rest. The purpose of it is to actually spin your arms really fast and to feel what it is, or what it feels like, to spin those arms really quickly.
Double arm backstroke is really effective. It helps you to see where you're placing your hands as they enter the water over your head. And if they're too close in, you can really feel it because it becomes physically uncomfortable to have your hands too close together as they go over your head and try to pull water down each side of your body.
Something I like to do is sort of relaxing also, but it's a good warm-up for the butterfly stroke in terms of getting the arms and shoulders ready to swim. And in thinking about technique also is the one-arm stroke drill. The neutral position of the drill begins with the hands extended forward. And instead of pulling both arms through the body, you are just pulling one and breathing out the side, not forward. So when you do take this one stroke, you are doing everything associated with the fly stroke except pulling with two arms.
You know, I think one of the things I liked about that, not just doing it, but I would not worry about the movement of my head and let my head watch my hands exactly what they were doing. And so when you do the stroke drill, one arm, your head can follow the hands. And it's kind of neat to see exactly what they're doing and then figure out what they need to be doing and that sort of thing.
Here you can just sort of use breathing out to the side, and it's more relaxing. You're able to concentrate on your timing, which is an important element for somebody learning the stroke. Or someone who's accomplishing the stroke as well. The timing is important. Where you put in your kicks at the top end of the stroke and in the exit portion of your stroke.
It's a boom drill that a coach made up, and it just really helped your body, or helped remind your mind and body of what it's like or what it's supposed to feel like when you're finishing the arm sweep of the stroke and kicking that second big kick down. Really trying to coordinate the end of the kick, or your second kick, with the end of the arm pull through.
One other has to do with timing, with the breath and the head entering the water. It's called a delay recovery drill, and the beginning or neutral position in that drill is with the hands down at your sides and your head forward. You're undulating, you're kicking dolphin kick. And I pretend like I have just taken a breath, or my head is moving in a manner that it will move on a non-breathing stroke. So I sort of simulate that and move the head forward as the hands come around from the bottom position or from the exiting position.
Also, you know, practicing sculling, where the hands are just going in and out and not any kind of backwards motion at all. And yet the body is propelled forward. And it puts a lot of pressure on your hands, it puts a lot of pressure on your forearms, but it really makes you realize that you don't pull straight back in any stroke, not butterfly, freestyle, or anything, that it's a combination of pulling back and changing the pitch of your hands.
I try to do all of my stroke drills so that we do a drill and it leads to a full stroke. For example, one of my favorites is to scull, so we will perhaps do 100, and we'll do a scull like this for 50, and then switch into breaststroke or butterfly for a 50 and try to duplicate that scull. That has been most effective, to always lead to the stroke immediately from the drill.
It doesn't take long for a competitive swimmer to realize that fast turns are an easy way to improve time and win races. The fitness swimmer can benefit from sound turn technique as well. Good turns will enable the lap swimmer to swim more yardage per workout while making time in the water more efficient and less arduous.
Anytime that you do a turn, if you do it correctly, you could save a certain amount of time and gain an advantage over your competition.
The freestyle flip turn is easy to learn.
Well, the flip turn, the easiest way is to think of it as a forward roll with about a quarter twist.
Start out by simply doing somersaults in the pool. Then, while swimming, incorporate this flip into every few strokes. Now swim and flip so that your feet plant firmly on the wall with your toes pointed directly toward the surface. Once you've learned the proper distance to start your flip, push off the wall on your back and glide in a streamlined position. Finally, incorporate the twist onto your stomach as you push off the wall, corkscrewing through the water.
And the problem that a lap swimmer has is they always try to incorporate the twist in the middle of the somersault, and they get lost. If they'll just for a while do a forward roll, push off on their back until they're very good at it and very streamlined, and then start putting the quarter twist in as they're pushing off the wall, they can learn a turn. I think my record for teaching that in a college swimming, non-competitive college swimming class is about 10 minutes.
Your feet come over the top, and as you push off the wall, that's when you want to twist over onto your stomach, so that you're twisting while you're moving the other direction instead of hitting the wall, twisting, and then pushing off, because that'll make an extra step in there.
You want to come into that wall Take that last stroke, tuck your chin, flip your feet immediately over, have your knees slightly bent, just like you would be doing a standing broad jump, and then push off the wall. Boom, once again, getting in that streamlined position. Real explosive, very strong first stroke, sets up your next length, a lot of momentum.
You're going to tuck up in a tight ball. The tighter ball that you can be in, the faster you're going to come around. As your feet come over, you want them to be right there on the wall so that when you start pushing, you're actually pushing wall and going forward.
You actually accelerate going into the wall, make that turn, and then feel like there's a wall of fire there, that you don't want to plant your feet and then push off. You want to come off and then, boom, make it all one movement off that wall.
And you just know where that last stroke is in relation to the wall. Finish it, throw your turn, and it's all one motion. I think that's the key, really, is that you look at it as being all one motion and not finding the wall with your feet and then pushing off.
Because of a new rule, a competitive backstroker no longer needs to touch the wall with the hand before turning. This has evolved the turn into something that is quite similar to the freestyle flip turn.
It's basically a freestyle flip turn. And the thing about it is that you don't have to get as close to the wall, so you're not swimming the same distance. In backstroke, when you had to touch, you had to actually go that much farther. Now you don't have to go as close because you don't have to touch.
And so you really need to know where you are with respect to the wall, and you do that by using the flags. And so what I would do is just practice a lot of times where you're just swimming in, start midway along the pool, swim in, count your strokes to the flag, touch the wall, and stop.
You swim into the wall, you turn over on your front, and you finish the one arm stroke that you were in the process of doing as you were turning over. And then you flip, and you're already on your back.
You turn on your stomach, take that final stroke, propel yourself over as in a freestyle turn, push off on your back, which is the natural position anyway, and start swimming again.
The open turn is used for both the butterfly and the breaststroke. Even though the strokes differ greatly, the actual turn and push off the wall is nearly identical.
When I think of turns, to execute a good turn is, to me, a three-part process. Number one, you have the approach to the wall. Number two, you have the turn itself. And number three, you have the push-off and the streamline coming off the wall. In dressing each one, of course, you dress the approach first. As you get closer to the wall, you want to feel like you're accelerating.
You go into the wall and utilize the glide from the end of your kick, and you always want to kick into the wall, and then you bounce off the wall, hit the wall and bounce off, treating the wall like it's a hot plate.
The second phase of the turn itself is the actual turn. And the reason that it's good to have a feel for hitting the turn perfectly at the apex of your extension is so that you can anticipate touching the wall with your hands. The bottom hand on the turn comes down and lifts up in a position that's ready to extend forward and into the streamlined position.
You come to the wall with your hips lower than your shoulders, and then you kick your heels up to the bottom of your butt, and that automatically gives you the momentum to turn around. So you're not using your hands or your arms to change your momentum, to turn around your momentum. It's coming from coming into the wall in the proper position and then really kicking your feet up real quickly, and that's what stops your momentum and turns you around.
What I focus on when I'm doing a turn is trying not to grab onto the wall and pull myself into the wall. I try and just push away from the wall and what I focus on most is trying to bring my knees up underneath my chest as fast as I can. And it's almost like you do a little bit of a dolphin kick to get them up there.
I throw my head directly back and look up like towards the sky or the ceiling as my hand passes beside my ear. Simultaneously, the underwater hand is like a knife moving through the water. You want to make sure that your palm slips right through the water, your hand slips right through the water, and it goes very close to the side, and that the knees are brought up almost into the chest or in toward the wall, and and in a little tiny bundle, you whip around and bounce off the wall. All these are like little nitpicky sort of sounding things, but when a turn is done right, all these things are done in one motion. It's just boom, pop, and you're out.
And so the most important thing there is as you come in, really to do what I call a fallback turn. You come in, you drop one hand, and you fall back and bring your feet up to the wall as quickly as you can and go. And you don't waste a lot of effort throwing yourself. You just fall back.
You don't want to be completely turned around on your stomach as you push off, because to completely turn your body around before you push off requires a great deal of effort, and it creates a great deal of resistance. When one pushes off the wall, at that point, you have created the most amount of velocity that you're ever going to attain in your race. So you want to preserve that velocity as much as possible, and you do so on the push-off, the third portion of the turn, by streamlining really, really tightly.
Streamline is the term used for a hydrodynamic glide through the water during the start or push off the wall.
Streamline, streamline, streamline. We teach it so much to kids, master swimmers. I mean, it's the key word for starts and turns. You're going to go a lot faster jumping off a block, diving into the water, than you can when you swim. So you need to take advantage of that as much as possible by streamlining.
I always describe it as pretending you're a pencil and having your arms clasped over your head and squeezing your head with your elbows and really push off. So you're streamlined as you can be, and you're not creating any more turbulence in the water than necessary.
I put one hand over the other and lock my elbow, and lock my my thumb around the outside of my hand, and then lock my elbows on either side of my head, like right behind my ears. So it's like a very tight position. That's why, you know, like a rocket or a torpedo is pointed at the nose, because it goes through the water better.
It's important to have that head tucked in with your arms together, not the Superman position, but the streamline position.
Well, the Superman position does nothing but create drag. Because what's happening is you've got water rushing against your head. Whereas if you get into that nice long streamline position, your head is tucked in between your arms, and there's no water hitting your shoulders or your head, creating drag.
In the freestyle, backstroke and butterfly starts and turns, kicking off the wall and breaking to the surface is of utmost importance.
I start my kick right away, but real short, choppy little kicks. Because if you get into a habit of getting too deep of a kick, that'll actually slow you down, that'll produce the drag. But if you get into a nice little choppy type motion, that'll help you get to the surface a little bit better and a little bit quicker.
The arm that should pull first is the arm that is closest to the bottom of the pool. So if you push off on your left side, the first stroke that you take should be with your left arm. And that'll help finish off riding you onto your stomach and get you up onto the surface of the water.
Every turn, I would do dolphin kick. And that's what you do in a race. You have to practice it every day in the pool. You simulate the real world race preparation, and you do that dolphin kicking. And you grow accustomed to how the body angle, how you come off the wall, and how you need to take your first kick.
Take 2 or 3 dolphin kicks, or if you're not comfortable doing that, take 3 or 4 or 5 powerful flutter kicks in a stroke and propel yourself to the surface.